Not one of them showed up to Lucas's funeral. No flowers. No calls. No apologies. Just a text from my sister, "Stop the drama. We need to talk urgently." She wasn't grieving. She was scheming. She wanted access to my dead son's trust fund, $300,000, to pay for her daughter's wedding. But what she didn't know was, Lucas left me a plan. And a warning. So if you're watching this, subscribe. Tell me where you're tuning in from. Because I'm going to take you back to how this nightmare began. 3 months ago, Lucas lost his battle with cancer, and on the day I said goodbye at his funeral, March 18th, my sister Evelyn was throwing a luxury engagement party for her daughter Clara. She sent out invitations. Rented a ballroom. Toasted champagne. That was the day everything started to unravel. Funeral day. When the pastor asked if there were any more family members present, Maya Bennett turned and looked behind her. 12 pews. 10 of them empty. One held the elderly couple from next door, the kind ones who'd brought soup during the final weeks. Another seat held Nurse Jamie from hospice, standing stiff with a respectful stillness. That was it. She turned back to face the casket. Lucas deserved more than this. Her hands gripped the worn fabric of his favorite wool jacket, the one she'd tucked against her chest like armor. It still faintly held his scent, something like pine soap and old books. The pastor's voice continued, soft and standard, the kind of script meant to comfort but falling like ash in the hollow room. No Evelyn. No Tom. No Clara. They had chosen not to come. Afterwards, outside the chapel, the air smelled of wet concrete and wilted roses. Rain had misted the sky, leaving everything damp and undecided. Maya walked to her car in silence, the jacket still folded tightly in her arms. As she slid into the driver's seat of her battered silver Subaru, something crinkled beneath her grip. She paused. Reaching into the side pocket, she pulled out a small, faded receipt. Her breath caught. Mango fix smoothies. Large. Extra ginger. 3 weeks before his body failed. Even during chemo, Lucas had insisted on mango. Fixes everything, he'd grinned with chapped lips, straw poking from a too thin hand. Mango and Mom. Her eyes burned. She folded the receipt in half and tucked it into her wallet, where people usually kept pictures of those still living. The drive home blurred in tears and radio static. Her house felt colder than usual, as if grief had crept through the walls overnight and rearranged the furniture. A foil-covered casserole dish sat untouched on the counter. Sympathy cards stood like gravestones on the mantel, with words like thoughts, peace, and heaven, none of which felt remotely applicable. Maya poured herself a cup of tea she didn't want. She sat down in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling past names. She paused at one, Evelyn, her sister. Her thumb hovered. She didn't tap. Instead, she turned the phone face down. When the doorbell rang, she startled hard enough to spill tea on her sweater. It was Jamie, the nurse. "Sorry to drop by," she said. "I forgot, this was in his drawer. Thought you might want it." She handed Maya a sealed envelope. Lucas's handwriting. Blocky. Careful. "Thank you," Maya said, voice tight. She waited until the house was quiet again before opening it. Inside was a single page, scrawled in that same unhurried pen. "Mom, I know you're going to do the right thing, don't let her spin it. Keep the promise." Maya read it 3 times, each time slower than the last. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she folded the letter gently, kissed the edge of the paper, and placed it inside the jacket pocket where the receipt had been. It was nearly morning by the time she lay down, not to sleep, but to rest her eyes. When she woke again, her phone buzzed. A new message. "Evelyn, we need to talk about the estate. ASAP." Maya stared at the screen. Evelyn hadn't shown up for the funeral. Not a call, not a flower, not even a line of empty sympathy, but the moment Lucas was in the ground, the money resurfaced. Maya's jaw tightened. She set the phone down gently on the table, and for the first time since Lucas's passing, her sadness began to shift, coiling into something sharper. Something like resolve. They weren't late. They chose not to come. Maya had replayed that sentence in her mind since the moment she stepped into the near-empty chapel. It echoed louder than the organ, louder than the eulogy. Now, back in her kitchen, the scent of yesterday's flowers filled the air like guilt no one claimed. The phone rang. She let it ring 3 times before answering. "Maya," came Evelyn's voice, smooth, almost rehearsed. "I wanted to call before things got too busy." Maya said nothing. Evelyn continued, a false tremor tucked into her tone. "I'm so sorry about Lucas. I wanted to be there, God, I wanted to, but with Clara's engagement dinner, you understand how these venues are. Non-refundable. So much planning. You scheduled it for the same day." Maya's voice was calm. Dry. 3 weeks ago. We assumed Lucas would be stable. The silence that followed didn't need words. They both knew Lucas had been dying. They both knew Evelyn had hoped he'd die either sooner or later, just not inconveniently. Anyway, Evelyn rushed on, Clara didn't want to cancel. Trevor's parents are very traditional. And powerful. You understand how society works. Maya stared at her reflection in the kitchen window. Pale. Drawn. Eyes that had cried too long and too hard. Lucas died on a Tuesday. The funeral was Thursday. You had a party. Evelyn exhaled, not out of sadness, but irritation. This isn't helpful. I called to ask something important. Maya said nothing. The trust, Evelyn said, and there it was. The real reason for the call. Clara and Trevor could really use a bit of help. Just a small release for the wedding. It would mean a lot to everyone. Maya leaned back against the counter. It's what Lucas would have wanted, Evelyn added quickly. He loved Clara. Family's everything. But Maya remembered differently. Lucas hadn't trusted Evelyn. In his final days, he'd grown distant from all of them, except her. Still, she said nothing. The silence stretched long enough for Evelyn to fill it. Maya, you're grieving. I get it, but don't let grief cloud what's right. The call ended soon after. Politely. Tense. Maya stood in the quiet afterward, staring down at the envelope on the kitchen table, Lucas's will, opened only halfway. Her hands hesitated. She hadn't had the strength before. She unfolded the pages, slowly now. The first lines were standard, executor, directives, statements of intent. Then, a paragraph that made her breath stop. No disbursement of funds shall be made for events of personal celebration, including but not limited to weddings, engagements, or family reunions. The trust shall be used solely for the medical, psychological, and educational betterment of underprivileged children. Beneath it, her name. Executor. He had written her into power. But more than that, he had written in protection from them. A footnote referenced a secondary clause, potential amendments made within the final month. She flipped the pages, searching. At the bottom of the second-last page, typed in legal language but written in Lucas's spirit, should any party attempt to pressure the executor to release funds for unauthorized purposes, I request that said executor take all reasonable action to delay or investigate said pressure. This trust is not a gift to my family. It is my last attempt to do good. Maya sat down. Not from grief, but from clarity. He had known. He had expected this. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Evelyn. We need to meet. I can't have you dragging your feet. Clara's future is at stake. The knock came before sunrise. Maya hadn't slept. The will still sat open on the table, pages marked with sticky notes, underlines, and grief-stained fingerprints. She had read every word twice. The clause about family exploitation burned behind her eyes. So when the knock came, firm, urgent, unapologetic, she already knew who it was. She opened the door in silence. There stood Evelyn. Perfectly dressed. Not a hair out of place. Designer coat. Pearls. No umbrella, despite the morning drizzle. "Good morning," Evelyn said, stepping in before being invited. "You look tired." Maya closed the door without replying. They sat in the kitchen. Evelyn waved off coffee. Instead, she placed a folded brochure on the table. A wedding venue. Clifftop. Expensive. Showy. Clara's dream, or maybe Evelyn's. "We've reserved it for June," Evelyn said, tapping the photo. "That gives us 4 months. Enough time to make some reasonable withdrawals." Maya didn't look at the brochure. "I read the trust," she said quietly. Evelyn's smile didn't move. "I assumed. Still, you're the executor. Lucas would have wanted you to use discretion. He loved Clara. He wouldn't want her struggling with." He put in a clause. A pause. "A clause," Evelyn repeated. "No funds for weddings. Or parties. Or family gifts. Just medical and education support for children in need." Evelyn blinked, not shocked, just annoyed at being cornered this early in the morning. "That sounds dramatic. Probably boilerplate. He wrote it himself." Another pause. Evelyn leaned forward slightly, voice softer now. "Maya, I understand grief. I do. But don't let it make you rigid. These things, clauses, wishes, legal nonsense, they aren't meant to block family, they're just meant to guide us." Maya looked down at her son's signature on the will. "He was guiding us," she said. "Away from this exact moment." Evelyn exhaled through her nose. Sharp. Controlled. Lucas was a child. And when people are dying, they don't always think clearly. Maya's head snapped up. "Don't." Evelyn raised her hands. "I'm just saying, emotions are high. Mistakes get made. Clara is trying to build a future. You're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars that could help." Maya's voice was steady now. Cold and sharp as the rain still pattering against the windows. He wasn't confused. He was protective. "Of the money. Of me." The room went still. Then Evelyn leaned back in her chair and smiled, not kindly. "If you're planning to make this difficult, Maya, I want you to understand something." She stood, sliding her gloves back on. "You're not the only one with legal options. You may have control now, but executors can be challenged. Replaced. Especially if grief affects judgment." She reached the door and paused. "Let's not make this ugly." The door closed behind her. Maya sat in the silence for a long time, then she walked to the table, picked up the trust documents again. Lucas's final note, his handwritten postscript, still lay folded between the pages. She opened it. "Read the words again, keep the promise." And in that moment, she knew Evelyn wasn't just here for a slice of money. She had planned this. Maybe from the moment Lucas was diagnosed. As Maya scanned the trust again, her heart stopped at a detail she had missed. There was an addendum, a new page inserted just weeks before Lucas passed. It stated, in clear terms, "Any attempt by named family members to influence the executor during or after my illness shall be grounds for legal review." And there, in black and white, was the line, "Named family member, Evelyn Bennett." He was afraid she'd come. Maya read the sentence over and over, written in Lucas's steady, slanted hand. The letter had been tucked into the envelope from Nurse Jamie, a second one. Not the short note from the day after the funeral, but a longer, more intentional piece. Dated 2 months before he died. "If you're reading this, it means Evelyn came. I know she will. She's always believed money could fix people, even when she's the one breaking them." Maya sat alone on her porch, wrapped in a shawl. The sky was overcast, the kind of dull gray that felt like someone had dimmed the world's brightness knob. Lucas's letter continued, more direct now. "I changed the trust structure after her last visit." She didn't say it out loud, but I could feel it, the calculation behind her concern. She offered to manage things for me. Said you were too close to think straight. Don't let her touch it, Mom. Promise me, if she gets to Clara, she'll use her too. You're the executor. You're the shield. Maya folded the letter gently. Her fingers trembled, but not from weakness. Not anymore. Later that day, she met with Jordan Blake, her lawyer and longtime friend. He looked the same as ever, practical suit, quiet eyes, a face made for listening. So Lucas made you the sole executor, Jordan said, scanning the documents. And he left a delay lock on disbursement? Maya nodded. 6 months. No early withdrawals unless it's for education or medical causes. And, he mentioned Evelyn by name, said if she tries to interfere, to treat it as a conflict of interest. Jordan leaned back, lips pursed. Smart kid. Protective. She's not going to back down. Then we won't either. He flipped through the legal pages, his finger pausing on a highlighted clause. Here, this is key. Any attempt to challenge executor's stability without medical grounds shall constitute harassment. That'll hold up. But Maya wasn't so sure. Evelyn didn't care about rules. She cared about optics. She would twist Maya's grief into a weapon. She would spin the narrative, sister losing her mind, lashing out in mourning, hoarding wealth meant for family legacy. Jordan must have read her expression. We can reinforce your case, bring in doctors, Lucas's palliative care notes, financial advisors who spoke to him. Evelyn will try to discredit your emotional state. We'll stay ahead. Maya nodded. But her gut still twisted. That night, after Jordan left, Maya stood over the fireplace holding Lucas's 2 letters in her hands. She didn't burn them. She tucked them in a fireproof box and placed it behind the insulation panel in her closet. If this was going to become a legal war, she'd need every word. At midnight, she poured herself tea and sat by the window. The neighborhood was quiet. Streetlights cast yellow halos on the pavement. Across the road, the Johnsons' porch light flickered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Then the text came through, "You'll hear from my lawyer in the morning. Clara's future is at stake. You're letting grief make dangerous decisions." She closed her eyes. Clara's future, that was always the bait. At 8:43 the next morning, a knock came. A courier handed Maya an envelope, thick, stamped, official. Inside, legal paperwork. Notice of petition for medical review. Filed by Evelyn Bennett. Claiming Maya was emotionally unfit to manage Lucas's estate. Citing erratic behavior, signs of delusion, and emotional instability due to bereavement. Maya read it once. Then again. The page seemed to pulse in her hands. She wasn't just being undermined, she was being erased. Clara arrived just after noon. No makeup, no designer coat, just jeans, a gray hoodie, and a plastic bag in her hand. She looked younger like this. Smaller. Maya opened the door without speaking. Clara stepped inside like someone walking into a memory that used to feel safe. They sat at the same kitchen table, no Evelyn, no arguments, no legal folders between them. Just silence, and then, "I'm sorry," Clara said. Voice soft. Really soft. Maya nodded once, waiting. "I didn't know she filed that petition about your mental state. I swear. I found out when you did." Maya believed her. She studied Clara's face, not Evelyn's steel or Tom's polite betrayal. Just a young woman caught in someone else's web. She said it was temporary. That you'd agree to a few disbursements if you weren't under pressure. Maya leaned forward. "Clara. Look at me. Do you want this wedding? This venue, this huge performance?" Clara hesitated. Then shook her head. "I wanted a backyard ceremony," she whispered. "Something simple. But Trevor's family, and Mom, it became this thing." Maya didn't speak. She let her sit in that silence, Because sometimes that's how the truth rises, not with pressure, but space. Clara's fingers gripped the handles of the plastic bag. Slowly, she pulled out a stack of printed pages. Bank statements. Credit card ledgers. Loan deferral notices. She's in debt, Clara said, tears threatening. A lot more than she told anyone. I found these in her closet. She owes on almost every card. She remortgaged our house without telling me. Maya's jaw clenched. The numbers were staggering. Evelyn wasn't just spending. She was drowning. Clara went on, that's why she's pushing so hard. The wedding is a smokescreen. She's trying to use it to get access to Lucas's trust, not for me, but to bail herself out. And... She stopped. And what? Clara pulled out a second envelope. Her hand shook as she slid it across the table. Inside were printed emails. Dozens. Between Evelyn and someone named Kenneth Mills, a name Maya didn't recognize. The email domain, however, made her stomach drop. TrevorFoundation.org, Maya skimmed them. Carefully worded phrases. Long-winded fundraising discussions. Then buried in one thread, once Maya releases the funds, we can filter a portion through the youth program, file it under operational growth, and reimburse through the foundation line item. We'll make the reports clean. Another, if Clara's wedding is the pressure point, let's lean into that. Maya looked up, eyes wide. Trevor's family is part of this? Clara nodded slowly, tears falling now. I didn't know. I swear. I only found out last night. I think they're trying to use me, to get to the money through Mom. And Mom's letting them. Maya leaned back, breath caught in her chest. This wasn't about grief anymore. This was a conspiracy. They weren't just coming for Lucas's memory. They were trying to launder it through polite philanthropy, legal facades, and smiling photographs of future in-laws in front of empty charities. I'm sorry, Clara whispered again. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Maya stood. She walked over and placed her hands gently on Clara's shoulders. It's not your fault, she said. You're not her. They stood like that for a while. Just two women trying to untangle years of silence and manipulation. Clara sniffled and added one last detail. Trevor's family promised Mom a seat on the foundation board. If the money comes through, she becomes their public liaison. She gets a title, and they get the trust. Maya felt the floor shift beneath her. It wasn't just Evelyn anymore. It was bigger. More dangerous. And Lucas's name was being turned into currency. They said it was just a routine evaluation. That phrase, just routine, was always the soft cover over something sharp. The doorbell rang at 9 a.m. sharp. Maya was already dressed, her hair pulled back, documents stacked neatly on the coffee table. She had slept less than 3 hours. When she opened the door, the man standing there was younger than she expected. Early 40s. Expensive glasses. A pleasant face too practiced to trust. Dr. Nathan Fry, he said. Court-appointed psychiatrist. Maya stepped aside and gestured to the living room. He sat carefully, like someone used to assessing the room before the person. This won't take long, he said, opening a leather notebook. We're not making diagnoses. I'm here to assess capacity, your ability to make clear decisions regarding your son's estate. He said it all with a smile. Maya nodded. How have you been sleeping? He began. She offered a half smile. Not great. My son died 3 weeks ago. I imagine you've read that part. He marked something in his notes. Do you ever feel like Lucas is still with you? Hear his voice, maybe? Maya blinked. I read his letters. I remember what he said. That's not hallucination, Dr. Fry. That's grief. He scribbled again. Then, would you say your sister's legal petition has added stress to your grieving process? Maya stared at him. She's accusing me of being unfit because I'm not giving her access to money that doesn't belong to her. Yes, I'd say it's stressful. He nodded, slowly. Non-judgmental. Too non-judgmental. Would you mind describing a normal day since Lucas passed? Maya leaned forward. I answer emails from charities, I review bank statements, I read over legal documents Evelyn tried to bury me in. I feed the cat. I take walks. And then I lie awake wondering if I'm doing enough to protect my son's memory from people who'd rather profit off his death. That silence, when she finished, was heavy. Dr. Fry looked up at her for the first time with something approaching real attention. You seem remarkably lucid, he said carefully. But these evaluations, they're rarely just about behavior. They're about patterns. And emotional volatility. So, what, if I cry, I'm irrational? If I don't, I'm cold? His lips pressed together in a faint line. She'd made her point. After he left, Maya exhaled so deeply it startled her. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath the entire hour. She met with Jordan over Zoom. He looked tired but focused. I don't like that they moved so quickly with the petition, he said. They're trying to make you react, trap you in some emotional outburst they can use in court. I held it together. Jordan nodded. Still, we need to build your side stronger. Get character witnesses. Neighbors, Lucas's doctors. Maya opened a desk drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. You should see this. Inside were the emails Clara gave her. Proof of Evelyn's plan to use the trust to buy her way into Trevor's family's foundation. Jordan scanned them. His face darkened. If this gets verified, it's not just emotional manipulation. It's financial conspiracy. He looked up. Maya, this could become criminal. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, another envelope arrived. This one wasn't delivered by hand. It was slid through the mail slot, no postage, no return address. Maya opened it slowly. Inside were photographs. Dozens. Of her. At the grocery store, staring blankly at produce. Sitting at a red light, eyes glazed. Walking through the cemetery alone. Paused on her porch, weeping into her hands. Each one captured in a moment designed to look unstable. Broken. Someone had hired a private investigator. Someone was building a case against her. One photo had a timestamp circled in red, the day after Lucas's death. She was kneeling on the sidewalk, clutching his jacket, head down. To anyone who didn't know the context, it looked like a breakdown. To Evelyn's lawyers, it would look like proof. Maya flipped the last photo over. A sticky note was attached. Still think you're in control? And signed. Typed. But Maya knew the voice behind it. And this time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt ready. The knock came just as Maya was throwing the photographs into the fire. She watched them curl in slow motion, her image kneeling on the pavement, weeping, burning into silence. The sound of knuckles on wood snapped her back. It was almost dark. She didn't expect anyone. And certainly not him. He looked nothing like Evelyn's lawyer, no slick suit, no Rolex, no polite poison in his tone. Just a windbreaker, weather-beaten face, and a journalist's weary confidence. Maya Bennett? She nodded, hesitating. My name's Colin Reese. I write for State Watch. Investigative piece. I've been trying to reach you. I'm not doing interviews. This isn't about grief. It's about money. And something that doesn't add up with your nephew's future in-laws. That got her attention. She opened the door wider, just enough. Colin sat like someone used to people wanting him to leave. Maya stayed standing. I've been following Trevor's family foundation for about a year now, he began, sliding open a folder. They're a non-profit in name only. Shell organizations, overseas donations, padded executive salaries. All clean-looking on paper, but nothing ever lands where they claim. He pulled out a spreadsheet. Maya didn't touch it. Their biggest surge of incoming funds was projected for this year. But with donations drying up, they started getting creative. What does that have to do with Lucas's trust? He met her eyes. Everything. There's been chatter, anonymous tips, emails. Someone's planning to reroute estate money through the foundation, under the guise of a memorial partnership. But nothing about it leads to real charity. Maya's stomach turned. She sat down slowly. You're saying they want to launder Lucas's money? Colin didn't blink. That's exactly what I'm saying. Maya stood, began pacing. She thought of the emails from Clara. The debt. The desperation. They'd use the wedding as a funnel, she said aloud. Get Evelyn access. Create a partnership, then roll it into some fake youth program run by Trevor's foundation. Colin nodded. The name Lucas Bennett Memorial Grant has already been registered in 2 internal emails. It hasn't been made public yet, but they're laying the groundwork. Maya stopped pacing. Why me? Because you're the only one standing in the way. Evelyn can't access the funds without your signature. But if she gets you out of the way, mentally, legally, she and Trevor's family can proceed. Clean. Quiet. Maya swallowed hard. So what do you want from me? I want the truth. You give me access to some of your files, documents, trust language, proof of tampering, and I'll blow this whole thing open. Publicly. If they're scared of court, imagine what national headlines will do. Maya thought of Lucas. The promise he asked her to keep. She also thought of the photos, the surveillance, the letter Evelyn had submitted to the court claiming Maya was mentally volatile. You said anonymous tips, Maya said carefully. Do you know who submitted them? Colin paused. Then handed her a document. A printed screenshot of a message. Sender, c.bennett@arcmail.com, Clara. Colin leaned forward. She's trying to help you, from the inside. But she's not safe either. If this goes to court without pressure from the outside, Evelyn will bury everything in procedure. Maya's hands tightened around the page. Clara had already started the fight. Now it was Maya's turn to finish it. The door was already open when Maya arrived. Clara stood in the hallway of her mother's house, arms crossed, hair messy like she hadn't bothered to brush it. Her eyes were puffy. But she didn't look fragile. She looked finished. Maya stepped inside. Clara didn't speak. From the living room came Evelyn's voice, polished as ever, on the phone with someone, maybe a lawyer, maybe a donor. Her tone was honey-coated steel. Yes, she's unstable. The court papers are in. We just need to prove consistency in her behavior and let the process play out. Maya stepped into view. Evelyn froze mid-sentence. Her mouth twitched into something that might have been a smile if it hadn't curdled so quickly. I'll call you back, she said sharply, and hung up. You could have called, Evelyn said to Maya. You could have come to your nephew's funeral, Maya replied. Evelyn looked away, jaw tightening. Clara moved past Maya and stood between them. Mom, she said. I saw the documents. The emails. The debt. The plans with Trevor's foundation. Evelyn blinked. Then blinked again. I did it for you, she said, the old performance already slipping into place. So you wouldn't have to worry. So you could have the future you deserve. Those people, Trevor's family, they respect status. We had to meet them where they are. Clara's voice cracked. You promised we were doing this together. You lied. You used me. I protected you. Evelyn snapped. Her voice rang louder than intended. Maya stepped forward. You tried to steal from a dying boy's legacy to protect your reputation, she said coldly. That's not protection. That's desperation. Evelyn looked between the two of them. For the first time, her mask cracked. You think I had choices, she said, quieter now. You think I wanted to beg for access to a fund I have no legal right to? Do you know what it's like to sit at a table with millionaires and pretend your daughter belongs there while your credit cards are maxed out and your house is mortgaged twice? She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You call it stealing. I call it survival. Clara whispered, "You never asked me what I wanted." Evelyn's face froze. Then she turned to Maya. "You think you're better because he died in your arms? You think you're stronger because he gave you the trust?" Maya said nothing. That silence said everything. Evelyn stepped toward Clara. "They won't accept you without this wedding. Trevor's family only respects leverage. The foundation, the board seat, it was going to protect you when they turn on you." Clara stepped back. "One step. Enough to hurt. I don't want to marry into that." For a moment, Evelyn said nothing. Then, just above a whisper, "Then you'll have nothing." Maya took Clara by the arm and guided her toward the door. Evelyn didn't follow. As they reached the porch, Clara paused. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "You don't owe me an apology," Maya said gently. "But if you want one, from her, you might be waiting a long time." As Maya drove Clara away from the house, her phone buzzed. A voicemail transcription popped up. From Jordan. "Evelyn's lawyers just filed an emergency motion. They're claiming you've tampered with trust documents. You're being accused of fraud." Maya stared out the windshield. This wasn't just survival for Evelyn anymore. It was war. The room was dim, lit only by the lamp on Jordan's desk. Maya sat across from him, staring at documents she hadn't expected to exist, but somehow, deep down, always feared did. "Look at this," Jordan said, tapping a line on a printed ledger. "Baystone Development, $10,000, Strategic Consulting." "What is that?" Maya asked. "Fake company. Shell account. Set up through Trevor's foundation. Money routed, cleaned, relabeled." He flipped the page. "And guess who signed the consulting agreement?" "Evelyn Bennett." Maya felt something heavy and slow slide into place in her chest. "She planned this," she whispered. "She coordinated it," Jordan said. "They were prepping the foundation as a funnel. The wedding, the public rollout, all part of a longer con." Maya stared at Lucas's name on another sheet. It was being used as bait. As cover. Not legacy. Leverage. At midnight, her phone rang. A blocked number. She hesitated, then picked up. "This is Maya." The voice on the other end was tense. "Male. Tired. My name's Jacob Farron. I did accounting for the Trevor Foundation. I quit after I saw what they were building. I've got evidence. Evelyn's in deep, and she's not acting alone." Maya sat upright. "There's a letter in your court file," he continued. "Looks like Lucas approved a fund release for Clara. It's a forgery. I have the original draft, edits, metadata, too. I'll testify. But only in person." They met the next day in a cafe 2 towns over. Jacob looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. Still, he laid down the flash drive with a steady hand. "Everything's on there. Emails. Payment schedules. Evelyn's instructions. She called it a legacy play. But it's just theft in nicer shoes." Maya took the drive. "You're doing the right thing." He nodded once. "So are you." That night, she sat in silence, watching a video of Lucas on her laptop, his voice cracking, but certain. "Don't let her touch it, Mom. That money's for the kids. Not her pride. Not Clara's wedding. Promise me." She didn't cry this time. She only nodded. The phone buzzed again. Jordan's voice came through, firm. "Evidence is filed. With Jacob's testimony, it's more than enough. Fraud. Forgery. They'll come after you hard now, Maya." She stared out the window, her reflection barely visible in the dark glass. "Let them try," she said. Maya sat still at the defense table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Across the aisle, Evelyn looked calm, polished, the perfect image of quiet concern. Only the tension in her jaw betrayed her. The judge entered, commanding the room without effort. "We are here to evaluate the validity of the trust execution, and whether Maya Bennett remains fit to serve as executor. Jordan stood first. My client's mental clarity is not in question. What is in question is the sudden legal interest in the trust after it became clear the funds could not be accessed for personal use. Ms. Bennett is honoring her son's written wishes. Others are not. Evelyn's lawyer rose smoothly. No one here seeks to dishonor Lucas. But my client believes his intent has been misinterpreted by a grieving mother, a woman clearly struggling under the weight of loss. Maya said nothing. She didn't have to. Let them talk. Let them spin. Evelyn took the stand first. She smiled gently for the jury. Lucas was family. He and Clara were close. He wanted her to feel supported, especially as she starts a new chapter. Jordan stepped forward. Did he ever put those wishes in writing? No, but... Thank you. That's all. Evelyn stiffened. Then Jordan held up a page. The letter entered into evidence, allegedly from Lucas, approving a wedding fund disbursement. This document was forged. Our witness, Jacob Farron, former accountant for the Trevor Foundation, has testified under oath that the letter was fabricated after Lucas's death. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Jordan continued, we also have digital evidence that Evelyn Bennett provided language edits to this document before it was printed. The judge narrowed her eyes. Evelyn's face went cold. Clara took the stand next. She looked nervous, but steady. No, Lucas never offered to pay for my wedding, she said. He was kind. But he believed in the trust's mission. He told me once, if even one kid gets a second chance, it's worth everything. Jordan asked, had you seen the letter before Lucas passed? Clara shook her head. I found it in my mom's drawer. Weeks later. Evelyn stared at her, blinking like she didn't recognize her own daughter. During recess, Clara approached Maya in the hallway. I'm sorry, she whispered. For staying quiet so long. You didn't, Maya said. Not when it mattered. Just behind them, Evelyn stood near the doorway, alone. Clara turned to her mother. Her voice was low, but firm. I don't believe you anymore. Back in the courtroom, Jordan leaned toward Maya. They're not done. Evelyn's lawyer just requested a final submission. Something unexpected. Be ready. Maya nodded once. Whatever came next, she was ready to meet it head-on. The courtroom felt smaller today. Tighter. Evelyn took the stand again, her posture perfect, her face unreadable. But her eyes darted. Jordan stood slowly, the flash drive in his hand like a dagger dressed as evidence. Ms. Bennett, do you recall submitting this letter as proof of Lucas's wishes? Evelyn nodded. Yes. It was in his documents, and yet our forensic team confirms this letter was created 2 weeks after Lucas's death. Not only that, but its digital footprint matches devices owned by Trevor Foundation personnel. Evelyn stiffened. I wouldn't know about that. Jordan stepped closer. You edited the document, Ms. Bennett. Your tracked changes. Your comments. Make it sound warmer. Include Clara by name. Your words. Evelyn opened her mouth, then closed it. Silence. Dense and damning. Clara was called back to the stand. Her voice shook at first, but steadied as she looked toward Maya. I never saw that letter until after the funeral. My mom gave it to me, said it would protect us. That Lucas would have wanted peace. Jordan asked, did Lucas ever speak to you directly about the trust? Clara nodded. He said it wasn't for any of us, he called it his way of making up for time. I didn't understand then. I do now. When the judge asked for final comments, Evelyn requested to speak. She stood slowly. Regal. Composed. Like a queen accepting defeat, but refusing shame. I did what I thought was right, she said. I thought if I could direct some of that money toward Clara's future, it would be honoring my nephew, not defying him. The judge stared back, unmoved. Intent doesn't override instructions, Ms. Bennett. Especially not when evidence suggests forgery, manipulation, and personal financial gain. Evelyn didn't sit. She simply walked off the stand and returned to her seat, her mask intact, but cracked at the edges. Maya sat quietly as the judge recessed for deliberation. She didn't feel victorious. Only still. Then Jordan leaned toward her. "I think this is done," he said softly. "But you need to be prepared for the fallout. The foundation. The press. And Evelyn." "I'm not afraid of Evelyn," Maya whispered. "Not anymore." As the courtroom cleared, Evelyn brushed past Maya without a word. But Clara stayed behind. She stood in front of her mother. Face to face. "You were wrong," she said. "About Lucas. About love. About me." Evelyn said nothing. Just turned, and walked out of the courtroom alone. The courtroom was silent when the judge returned. No footsteps. No whispers. Just the weight of what came next. Maya sat still, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across from her, Evelyn's expression had hardened into a kind of polite denial, as if preparing for a verdict that couldn't possibly apply to her. The judge adjusted her glasses, eyes steady. After review of the evidence, testimony, and trust documentation, the court finds the following. A pause. Maya Bennett is of sound mind and remains the rightful executor of Lucas Bennett's estate. Maya exhaled, quiet but sharp. Like a pressure valve finally released. The trust shall be administered as written. All attempted alterations, forged communications, and requests that violate the trust's directive are deemed void. Jordan placed a hand gently on Maya's shoulder. The judge continued. Furthermore, this court finds sufficient cause for referral to the district attorney's office regarding potential fraud and document tampering, specifically as they pertain to Evelyn Bennett and associated parties. Evelyn flinched, the first visible crack in her mask. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Let this serve as a reminder, a legacy is not a currency. It is a responsibility. And this court will not allow grief to be weaponized for personal gain." Gavel. One strike. Done. Outside the courtroom, cameras waited, reporters already whispering names. Trevor's family slipped quietly into a waiting black car, avoiding questions. Evelyn exited minutes later, wrapped in silence, flanked by her attorney. Her eyes darted once toward Maya, then away. She didn't stop. Didn't speak. Clara stood at the far end of the steps. Alone. When she saw Maya, she walked over, slow but sure. They stood in the cool autumn air, neither saying anything at first. Then Clara broke the silence. "I didn't think she'd lose." Maya looked at her. She never thought she could. Clara stared down at her shoes. "She's going to hate me now." "She already made her choices," Maya replied gently. "You're just finally making yours." That evening, Maya returned home to silence. No reporters. No phone calls. Just the stillness she hadn't known in weeks. She placed Lucas's worn jacket back on the coat rack by the door, smoothing the shoulders as if he might walk in and wear it. Then she lit a candle. And finally, she wept. Not because she'd won. But because something sacred had been saved. As she washed her hands at the kitchen sink, her phone buzzed. A voicemail transcription loaded. From an unknown number. "The account's frozen, all of it. They're not going to protect her anymore. And someone just leaked the documents to the press." Maya stared at the screen. It had started as a family betrayal. Now, it was national. The house felt different now. Not quieter. It had always been quiet since Lucas died, but cleaner, somehow. Like the dust of deceit had finally settled and been swept away. Maya stood in the hallway, one hand resting on the edge of Lucas's old bedroom door. She hadn't entered in weeks. Maybe months. Now, she did. It smelled like books and the faintest trace of citrus shampoo. The room was neat, untouched. A half-filled notebook lay on the desk, his handwriting slanted across the page. "Promise isn't a word." It's a chain. It pulls you toward the thing you said you'd become. She closed the notebook gently. Later that afternoon, Clara arrived with a box in her arms, old photos, childhood drawings, and a small stack of letters she'd found hidden in Evelyn's office. They sat cross-legged on the living room floor, sorting through the pieces of a boy both of them had loved in different ways. They laughed once over a photo of Lucas dressed as a magician in second grade, his wand duct-taped together. Then Clara cried. I let her shape everything, she whispered. My dreams. My decisions. I don't even know if I loved Trevor or if I just loved her approval. Maya didn't interrupt. She simply sat closer. She's not going to forgive me, Clara said. She might not, Maya said softly. But that doesn't mean you stop choosing what's right. By evening, the kitchen smelled like tea and toast. Clara leaned against the counter, quieter now. I've been thinking, she said. I want to do something with the foundation. Lucas's foundation. Not for credit. Just to help. Maya studied her niece's face. She saw no trace of performance, no echoes of Evelyn's hunger for optics. Just a woman trying to start over. I'd like that, Maya said. We could use someone who understands both sides of the story. They shared a look. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But respect. And perhaps something stronger taking root. That night, Maya sat alone in her study, sifting through papers related to the Foundation's most recent project, a partnership with a children's hospital, the very one that had once tried to save Lucas. She found a letter waiting in the mail stack. From the hospital. She opened it carefully. Inside, a photo collage of children, smiling, recovering, drawing with crayons under fluorescent lights. Beneath it, a note, with your help, 37 children received care this quarter. Lucas's legacy lives here. Maya held the paper to her chest. And let the tears come. At the bottom of the letter, scribbled in unfamiliar handwriting, we'd love to meet you sometime. Lucas sounds like someone I wish I'd known. J, age 9. Maya blinked. Then smiled. It wasn't over. Something new was beginning. 1 year later, the town looked the same. Brick storefronts, rustling trees, slow-moving traffic near the courthouse. But Maya had changed. The grief had softened at the edges, not gone, never gone, but now woven into her days like a quiet undertone. She stood in front of a small community center, watching as a group of children spilled through the front doors, laughing. A banner hung above them, the Lucas Bennett Learning Fund, 1 year strong. Inside, Clara knelt beside a girl who was showing off a clay sculpture shaped like a lion. Clara smiled, nodding. Her sleeves were rolled up, her hair messy, her eyes clearer than Maya had ever seen them. When she looked up and saw her aunt, she stood and walked over. You came early, Clara said, brushing her hands on her jeans. Maya smiled. Didn't want to miss the presentation. They stood side by side, watching the kids. He'd have loved this, Clara said. Maya nodded. He'd have pretended to be embarrassed, but he'd be proud. They didn't say much else. They didn't need to. Later, Maya visited the cemetery. She brought fresh flowers, Lucas's favorite, white chrysanthemums, and tucked a copy of the latest Foundation newsletter beneath the headstone. She stood in silence for a long time. 37 last year, she said aloud. 53 projected for this year. You're still helping people. The wind moved gently through the trees. You were right, she added. About Evelyn. About how it would all unravel. She exhaled. And you were right about me too. I didn't think I was strong enough. But I was. She knelt to touch the stone, pressing her palm to the cool granite. I kept the promise. Just as she turned to leave, she saw them, footprints. Small ones. Fresh. The earth was slightly damp, and someone had been here recently. A child, by the size of them. She looked around, but no one was nearby. Then she noticed something tucked behind a corner of the headstone, a small rock, painted in bright colors. A rainbow, a smiling sun, and the words, "Thank you." No name. Just that. Maya blinked, heart caught between sorrow and wonder. Whoever they were, they had come quietly. Without cameras. Without fanfare. But with gratitude. She smiled as she walked back to the car, the painted stone in her hand. It had started with loss. But it didn't end there. It ended with legacy. With honesty. And a promise, not just kept, but multiplied.